Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's School Psychologist vlog. I wanted to start to talk to you and do my next series on executive functioning skills, which is definitely a couple of those target words that we hear about a lot, and you've probably heard a lot about as well. Um, and wanted to talk to you as parents. Today's kind of an overview of executive functioning because these are really important skills that students need to have. However, executive functioning skills can't be taught. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. If you ever go out and look at books for executive functioning, you'll see them talking about supporting or coaching. Executive functioning skills can't be taught. And this is something that needs to really be done outside of the school. We're more than willing to happy to work with you and to promote that and help build that. But really, this is something that needs to be done throughout the day, all the time. And in school, we only have the kids for a very short period of time. So when we think about executive functioning skills, and I'm reading some notes that I have, I was lucky enough as a school psychologist, Peg Dawson, who's quite known for executive functioning, and Richard Guare. They're actually out of Seacoast Mental Health. I've been lucky enough to work with her around executive functioning and, developing some skills and whatnot that we can work with kids on. So as I look down, I'm actually looking at my notes. But they're quite well known and quite knowledgeable in this area, and I wanted to share that information and all of this information with you. So executive functioning allows us to kind of organize our behavior over time, but it also allows us to override our impulses so that way we could have and reach long-term results or meet long-term goals. There's a set of skills that helps us overall just regulate our behavior. Then there's a second set of skills that's more developed that helps us better reach our goals, to kind of help us create that picture of a goal. What is it that we want to do? What is it that we want to accomplish? And how are we going to reach that goal? This time, when we think of, if you think of some of my past discussions on the brain and development and whatnot, this time is a huge, important time in our kids' lives, these preteen years. When the brain is developing, there's a few neurons when the kids are first born. As the kids reach just before school age, usually that 3 and 4 year old range, there's a gazillion neurons in our brains. I mean, the brain just takes over with these neurons and trying to figure out what is it that I need to know. And we look at kids and their vocabulary just astounds us, in the words that they're using and the things that they can do. And then as they go through kind of the school years, there's something called pruning, where the neurons start to die off, but because they're not being used, it isn't important. If you've ever planted a garden and you've planted anything like herbs, like chives, you get the tiny seeds, you throw the tiny seeds into the ground, tons and tons of chives start to pop up. But if you leave that bulk there, it's not going to grow. So you have to prune out kind of the smaller ones, the things that aren't being used, the ones that might look dead. So you prune those out so that way they'll grow and be healthy. And this is what we're looking for, because right now our kids' brains, the students' brains, they're going through this pruning process of what's important, what do I need to know, and how do I go through this. It's part of neuroplasticity. Some of these kids are going to have to develop new habits, but some of them, this is a great time to start working on these skills. And, you as the parents really have to take the forefront on this, because how is this structure going to work on at home? And how do we support that frontal lobe that isn't developed until they're 25, 27? How do we support it and not become their frontal lobe? Because a lot of times, as I've said before, I see parents come in every day, oh, they forgot their gym clothes, they forgot this, they forgot that. You're being their frontal lobe and you're not helping them. How do you support that frontal lobe? So each week I'm going to take apart the executive functioning skills and kind of talk to you a little bit about what it is, and as parents give you some suggestions that you can do to build that executive functioning skill. So what exactly are these skills overall? I'm going to pull up this piece of paper and hopefully it's not going to go through. But as you can see, we've got a whole set of executive functioning skills. Um, they also go in developmental order. So it's really important, I look at a lot of kids and people will talk about, my kid can't be organized. And if you look at organized, it's kind of up here in the middle. But I have kids who have difficulty with emotional control and they can't self-regulate. How are they going to be organized if they can't do the foundational skills as it is? Stress tolerance is another one. People are talking about, my kid can't handle adversity and stress and whatnot. Do they have these previous skills? And a lot of them they shouldn't have yet. They're still 11, 12, and 13 years old. Um, Kind of the planning and organizing, these types of things really started to get into that higher level that our kids really shouldn't have yet. I know we want them to have them, but we don't. So what is it that's going to be age appropriate? What's going to be developmentally appropriate that you can do with your child? So when I think of some just general executive functioning skills that you can do with your child at home, one, does your child help with chores at home? Um, they should have some daily responsibilities by this age, that they get up, they get themselves dressed, maybe they get their own breakfast, maybe you enjoy making them breakfast, emptying the dishwasher. There are some things that they should be doing that you should expect them to do every day. And then some extra things that you should look for them to do and just help out as a household would. Um, just because if you need to write it down, that's okay. Science shows that writing things down actually helps us remember something like 75% more. So just typing it or just telling, we don't remember. But the physical writing, we actually remember things 75% more. Lots of kids also use visual cues, which is absolutely fine, especially in this day of age where there's so much going on and we're bombarded all the time with all the technology. We do forget what's important. So writing things down using a visual model is not a problem at all. Kids this age sometimes babysit. I don't know if people still babysit anymore, but maybe if they have younger siblings, maybe they can babysit those siblings at home. They should be starting to develop an organization system for their schoolwork. Unfortunately, Rundlet Middle School does not have a school-wide assignment books, but that does not mean that as a parent you don't have an assignment book. We have an assignment book at our house, and then I have a work calendar, and then I have a home calendar, and we try to tie those together. Looking for following complex procedures. So in school right now, a complex procedure that's developmentally appropriate is, are the kids changing classes? Do they handle going from point A to point B and changing those classes? Long-term projects, which are kind of difficult to do, and this is what I hear a lot, but are students prepared for and able to follow through with long-term projects? And I know that is not happening all the time, so I'm definitely going to be giving parents some suggestions that can work. How about one of the things that happens is we're all busy, and are you and your child able to plan out family appointments, friend time, family time, those social engagements, homework time, planning for those projects time? So thinking about all the responsibilities that you have as a parent, getting various kids to different events or going to see different sporting events, also planning for all the homework time and the project time. Are you setting aside at home that time to go over and figure out where you're going to fill in those blocks? And then when inhibit rule breaking. So there are going to be times that our kids are sneaky when the authority is not there, meaning you, the parents or police, or whatever it may be. But I always expect kids to bend the rules and break the rules. That's important developmentally when they break the rules because they want to know what the boundaries are. It's also important to talk to them about what the consequences of their behaviors are, because if they were perfect all the time, they're really not learning anything and they're not learning any problem-solving skills. So when you think of rule breaking, it isn't always necessarily bad, But do your kids know the difference between right and wrong? And, will they inhibit, even though they may really want that candy bar in the store, are they going to, with you standing there, are they going to put the candy bar in their pocket? Or even though they might really want to play Fortnite all night long, if they know that you, say, are checking their phones or on social media, will they do that? And sometimes that's really hard to do. And the ways that we've been talking about interacting with your kids too. So I do want to keep going with that and giving you some ideas and some suggestions how to interact with the kids. So before you have a problem, before you have a situation, a task, whatever it may be, rehearsing. You can rehearse with them about what do you expect to happen? What do you think it's going to be like? Using verbal prompts like remember what we practiced, because we talked a while ago about really practicing some of these skills and you modeling, not just modeling as you practice, but modeling in real life how these skills are put to work. And arrange for other cues, like I said, lists, alarms, messaging systems, whatever it may be that you allow in your home will be important. During a task or if there is during a problem, you can coach, giving them reminders, and we'll talk specifically about those. Remind the student to check his or her schedule, or remind your child to check his or her schedule, because if you just continually tell them, they're going to expect to be told all the time and not really develop the executive functioning skill. And then you can monitor the situation and say, I saw, as you're talking afterwards, I saw that you got really upset by this, and helping them monitor their triggers because they're still growing, they're developing, plus they're hitting adolescence. And we know that during that time, the emotional control is a bit out of control. So really helping them identify what you're seeing for triggers. They'll correct you if you're wrong, but at least it's putting the bug in their head that they should be thinking about it. And then after the task is done, provide a positive reinforcement. I always feel that you can find something positive. As awful as it may go, there's going to be something positive. Even if it was a big long-term project and you argued every night about it and it was a fight the entire way, you've at least got it done. So there's always going to be something positive about it. And then debrief too. Talk about what happened, what worked, what didn't work. Both of those are important. What might you do differently next time, especially because what worked helps us figure out what the strengths are, what we did well, and what didn't work is just as important because this helps us understand what we need to change. And then sometimes talking with other people too about what worked for them and didn't work for them, because sometimes networking or consulting can give you some great ideas as well. So as I said, again, these are all of our executive functioning steps. Hopefully this is coming up for you. There we go. These are all of our executive functioning steps that we're going to be going over for the next few weeks, one at a time. And as I said, we're going to start next week with response inhibition. So I can give you some developmentally appropriate suggestions and skills for your child that you can use at home. And then also, open up that dialogue with your child's teacher about what you are doing at home. So that way we can follow up here at school too. So hopefully you enjoy this little excerpt about executive functioning. If you like it, feel free to give me a thumbs up down below or leave a comment. And thank you for watching. Have a great week.